Greetings and salutations, and welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast. I'm your host, Neil C. Hughes, and today I'm thrilled to introduce you to an individual who stands at the crossroads of education, artificial intelligence and mobile applications, and language learning. His name is Steve Toy, and he is the CEO of a company called Memrise, and they are a language learning app that boasts over 65 million users around the world. But what makes them different? Well, to begin with, Steve has dedicated most of his professional life to adult literacy, serving at the board level of Pro Literacy, Literacy Volunteers of Massachusetts, and Vision Literacy. But it's his expertise in education that has now spilled over into the tech world. And his foray into AI began at EY, where he implemented AI for real-world applications and benefits. And that journey continued at Apple, where he managed a portfolio of 50-plus mobile apps. And the fusion of these experiences have made him an ideal leader for a language learning company in today's tech-fueled era. So today, I want to find out more about Steve's journey and discuss Memrise's latest innovation, which is called MemBot, which is an AI language chatbot powered by ChatGPT technology. Essentially, it provides a more stress-free space for language learners to practice, chat, and enhance their skills anytime, anywhere, without that awkwardness that often comes in when you're learning a new language. And we're going to dive into all that and so much more and explore the future of language learning and the role that AI and technology can play in that. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to London, where Steve is waiting to join us today. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm Steve Toy, and I'm presently serving as the CEO of Memrise, which is a language learning company, language learning app. And we are notable these days for the degree to which we have embraced AI technologies in order to help people acquire a language much more effectively than they once could, given the state of technology in the past.
Well, one of the things that put you on my radar was when I was reading how Memrise is almost the intersection of education, artificial intelligence, and mobile applications. And there's an MemBot to talk about. But before we talk about that, I'd love to learn a little bit more about Memrise's journey and how the idea for MemBot came about and the inspiration behind it. Can you tell me a little bit more about the journey and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the best way to start the story of the journey is that from the very, very beginning, Memrise has always believed that the best way to learn a language is to go in country and survive. And I think that anybody who has at all tried to learn a language knows that to be true, just, kind of viscerally, intuitively, in their bones. They know that that's the best way to learn a language. I learned more French in 2 weeks in France than I did in 2 years in high school. And the reason why that is the case is because when you're in country, you are learning words like you would with an app. But then you're thrust into a constant process of hearing those words and trying to decode them as they're coming at you at different speeds with different accents and different contexts. And then you are also forced to use those words way earlier than you would otherwise, because in order to get a sandwich or a beer or a train ticket, you got to use these words. And so that's why going in country and surviving is the best way to learn a language. But heretofore, all of the app companies really could help you learn words or memorize words, but they couldn't thrust you into hearing words in a scalable way, and they couldn't give you a comfortable way to use those words in an app. And that is what has thrust Memrise into the space that it is right now, because technology allowed us to deliver on what we believe.
What a great story. And I mentioned a few moments ago, MemBot. So it sounds like an exciting addition to the language learning experience. So can you tell me a little bit more about what it is and maybe walk everyone listening through how it works and how that can enhance that language learning process for users too?
Yeah, so when it comes to the communication side of learning a language, what we know is that we have to help people overcome their fear of using the language. And people are fearful because they're worried about being judged. Yeah. And with MemBot, we are able to take the human component out of it and alleviate that fear. But the other thing that's necessary in order to be able to communicate with a language is you need to know immediately whether you're being understood. And if not, you need to be able to immediately try again in order to communicate your intention. And technology, specifically large language models, have given us the ability to meet those principles by developing a bot that can have conversations about particular topics. It can give you hints along the way. It can gently correct your grammar if you get it wrong. If you are saying something completely unintelligible or not what you intended, you will see that that is what is being manifest in the conversation, and you can try again. And so that is the reason. And there's, again, large language models and a lot of prompt engineering that goes into it, which I'd be more than happy to talk about. But that is the reason why we created MemBot, so that people can have conversations where they don't have to fear judgment and can try over and over again until they're understood.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that word fear there, because I think language learners often face so many different challenges when it comes to practicing and speaking in their target language, and especially around things like the fear of sounding silly or foolish, for example. So how does MemBot address these common challenges and ultimately help provide that safer space for learners to practice their conversational skills in the app?
Yeah, well, I think the number one thing is what people are afraid of is being judged to be stupid or simple or uneducated by other humans. I mean, who else is there to judge that you worry about but other humans? And so the main thing we do is we take other humans out of the equation so that there is nobody to judge you as you fumble through your first attempts to use a new language. So that's the primary thing that we do here with MemBot, is just remove the human judgment, which I might add is a fear that I don't think people really need to have. I don't think that people are sitting in judgment of new language learners and saying, geez, you're dumb. But our lizard brain in some way, shape, or form doesn't allow us to believe that. And so we tend to clam up when we're in the presence of others who speak a language natively or fluently.
And it's something I hear about all the time, even outside of the language space. A lot of my guests that I speak to on this podcast every day, they always say, I don't like the sound of my voice, and feel silly or foolish there too. And of course, nobody actually thinks that. And as this is a tech podcast, though, one of the key reasons that I invited you on here, and one of the things that attracted me to what you're doing, is that personalization is a key advantage of the AI-powered learning platform. So how does MemBot use AI to tailor the learning experiences for individual students? Are you able to share some examples of how this more personalized approach can actually benefit language learners? Because I think it's so interesting to hear a good AI story. There's so many bad stories out there at the moment, but it can really help people, can't it?
It can. And the way that we most powerfully demonstrate personalization is actually a little bit less in the communicate side of the journey, where MemBot is oh so helpful, though there is a lot of personalization there, and that fact that you can choose different missions. One person can choose to learn how to order a coffee successfully, and another person can choose to learn how to talk to a stranger successfully. But it is in the immerse side of things, where you're hearing the words that you've been learning so that you can learn to decode them in real time quickly. And up until this point, every single person that has endeavored to help people learn a language has known that the immersive part of the journey, hearing people using the words, is an essential part of the journey. But to create the content to immerse people into the content is very difficult, right? It takes time, it takes money, and you need to know where everybody is in their language learning journey. So what happens is we march people through the learning of 100 words and 200 words and 500 words in order. And then we try to make content that makes sense with those 500 words. And that does a couple of things. One is it means that everybody's learning the same words in the same order, even if those words aren't interesting to them. And secondly, it means there's not a whole lot of content that you can interact with, and you wind up with weird content, like the many Duolingo memes that you see out there where people are talking about the turtle is on my red sweater. Like, when are we ever going to use that sentence? So what we have done is we have used technology to flip the script on the creation of content. What we have done is we've said, we don't need to know all the words that our users have learned in order to make content in a world where there's infinite content. What we need to do is import content from places like YouTube and TikTok, understand the words and phrases that are in that content, and then marry it to the words that each individual user knows. And by doing that, we can more easily get more content to more users with different knowledge of a given language. And when there's enough of it, the people that are interested in football can learn French with football, and the people that are interested in music can learn Spanish with music, and the people that are interested in cooking can learn a language with Italian cooking. And that is how we personalize, by scooping up hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of pieces of video content, breaking it down into its words and phrases, comparing it to the words our users know, and then let them decide what's interesting to them so they stay engaged.
Wow, absolutely love that. That is incredibly cool. And if we look back to those old ways of learning languages, I think it's very different, because listening to, let's say, a CD as they would have a decade ago, to somebody telling you how to talk, and how actually people in a particular country will talk on TikTok, on YouTube, talking about football, talking about cooking, completely different intonation and everything. And I think another thing that's so important, of course, is immediate feedback and support. And I think that can really help impact a learner's progress too. So can you tell me how you also leverage AI to provide feedback to users, and maybe expand on the kind of role that AI plays in motivating and helping users progress faster?
Absolutely. So the immediate feedback portion is thrusts us back over to the MemBot, where when a user is interacting with MemBot, they can either type or they can speak the words that they're trying to convey in the conversation with our MemBot. When they type or speak those words, right, they have the option of translating what they spoke so that they can understand what a speaker of the language might have heard. Right? And that is the first level of feedback that is possible with large language models. But if they don't even ask for the translation, they just speak and perhaps use the wrong tense, well, then the MemBot will make a little helpful correction, changing the tense from past to present, or present to future, or the gender from male to female, what have you. And just a subtle way to say, hey, this is the proper way to construct that sentence, but the conversation keeps going. And then, of course, if the conversation itself is satisfactory and accomplishes the goal, say, for example, going into a cafe in Madrid and ordering a cup of coffee in Spanish, if you accomplish the goal, that is yet another piece of feedback. So all of those different subtle ways of giving clues, hints, feedback to a user in the course of a conversation are things that are possible today with large language models and the AI technologies that are out there.
And before you came on the podcast, I was doing a little research on you, and I quickly learned that Memrise also has this strong background in adult literacy. And I know that's something that you've been involved in for a significant part of your career too. So I'm curious, how does MemBot cater to adult learners? And also, what unique challenges or opportunities do you see in this segment of language learners? Because it's quite an exciting space at the moment.
Yeah, it is definitely an exciting space, and certainly by virtue of our user base, which spans the spectrum from school-age kids on up to everybody in their twilight years, we are in fact teaching adults, and we are teaching them to become more literate in a different language. In my adult literacy career, which started way back when, longer than I care to admit, we have always found that there are people who need literacy skills sometimes because they haven't gained them as they grow up, whether it be for a learning disability or things in life that got in the way, or because they're new to a country. In the case where they're new to a country, they are simply trying to acquire a new language, which is what we do here. And just as we were talking about at the top of this conversation, the fact of the matter is that learning a language requires you to learn some words, which is what we historically do incredibly well, help you memorize words. You need to learn to decode them in context and in real life, which is what we do with our ability to import YouTube and TikTok videos and let you listen to content that's interesting to you. And then you need to learn to speak them in order to convey your ideas at the right time in the right way, which is what our MemBot helps you to do. And these three things in conjunction will help literacy in all its aspects.
And as a host of a tech-focused podcast, I'm also curious about the digital and growth strategies behind MemBot's launch. So can you share some insights into how Memrise plans to promote and scale this new AI language chatbot and how you plan to reach a broader audience using technology too?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we are able to do, because of what I was describing to you with respect to our immerse capability, our ability to ingest the world's content for the purposes of learning, when we do that, we ingest a video and we create a lesson based on that video. So let's just take, for example, we were to import Bad Bunny's latest hit in Spanish. Yeah. When we ingest that, we break it down into its words and phrases, and we create a list of words that one can learn. We also put that list of words and that video out beyond our app on the web for everybody to see. When we are able to do that at scale, as we are, you wind up with a content footprint like we have of well over 1 million pages of all the words and word lists and videos that we have in our world that is very powerful in terms of attracting folks who want to learn. Whatever the language they want to learn, sometimes they want to learn in order to travel to, or to talk to their in-laws, or to talk to their workmates. And they want to learn with different interests like football or music or so on. We have stuff out there for everybody to run into. So the very thing that allows us to make the immerse so satisfying an experience for our users is the thing that allows us to put a very big, massive content footprint out in the world, which has its own gravitational pull. And that is one of the key things that we can do in order to grow and attract users, because we don't have the war chest of a Duolingo or a Babbler.
And of course, language education and technology are continually evolving fields. So if I ask you to look ahead, maybe gaze into your virtual crystal ball, are there any other exciting developments we can expect for Memrise and MemBot in the near future? Are there any other innovative projects on the horizon you can share with us? I appreciate you might be locked down as to what you can share, but are there any teasers about what we can expect that you can share?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we have all discovered along the way as we've interacted with products out there, such as Netflix or the internet in general, or large websites with lots of publishing of all sorts happening on it, is that at some point in time, pretty quickly, you get to a quantity of content that is overwhelming. And we are very rapidly approaching that ourselves because we can scale in a way that others can't. And so what we're working on is how might we help people navigate this unbelievably large content footprint for the purposes of accomplishing their objective. For example, we have many different word lists and videos about ordering coffee or ordering in a restaurant or checking into a hotel or buying a train ticket and so on. For those people who say they're about to travel to Paris, assembling all of these word lists and videos and MemBot missions to get them to the heart of what they want to accomplish quickly and easily is a huge opportunity for us, in much the same way that Netflix figures out what is the most likely movie or TV show that you want to see next, so you stay on the platform. So we've been gathering all of this content and building all of this content, and the next step in the journey is to chart a path that is ever more personalized to each individual.
Love that. And I think if we look at yourself and myself here, I think there's a real pressure on everyone to be in a state of almost continuous learning. So I've got to ask from yourself, from a personal point of view, where or how do you self-educate to stay on top of tech trends and trends within your industry?
So I think I am a very clear example of what many people are discovering along the way, which is there's so much out there, so much great content out there that is something that you can self-serve with and is in many cases free, that I try to make sure that I know what it is I'm trying to accomplish in a self-education, and then I dive relatively deeply into that. So at one point in time earlier on, when it became clear that Python skills were going to become important for engaging with all of the AI APIs that are out there, I decided, all right, I got to teach myself Python. So I went to Harvard Computer Science 101 and started my journey there, and went down the rabbit hole of Python development using all of the great free resources that are out there. Rather than saying, I'm going to go get a computer science degree, which would take time, cost money, and teach me things that weren't purpose suited for my acquisition of the Python language. And it is that same principle that is at play here with language learning. Some people want to learn a new language to talk to their partner's parents. And they should learn different words and different phrases and have different conversations than the person who wants to just successfully travel around a new country. They can dive deep into a language in a more specific way, just like I can learn Python, not computer science in general. So that's how I do my self-education. Is I have a problem I want to solve, and I go and solve that specifically, and then back out from there and look for the next problem.
Well, I've absolutely loved chatting with you today. And before I let you go, for anyone listening, just wanting to find out a little bit more information, maybe learn how they can order a coffee in a different language in just 20 minutes using great content, where would you point everyone listening to online to find out more information or even contact your team?
The easiest way is memrise.com, and that's spelled MEMRISE.com. And at the bottom of the page, there's all of our socials if you wanted to, engage with us in that part of the world. And on that page, you can actually go ahead and try to learn how to order a coffee very quickly. You can do it in 10 minutes using Memrise, and you'll find that on our main homepage.
And although we're talking about cutting edge technology here, I think the tale behind it is as old as time, really. Language learner excitedly starts to learn a new language. They fall in love with the vocabulary and the grammar, etc. They change the language in their phone settings, refuse to watch Netflix in their own native tongue. But it's the task of actually speaking the language for the very first time in public, in front of a native speaker. That exciting prospect suddenly becomes extremely daunting, and then fear takes hold. So I love the way you've described that journey today, because I always say technology works best when it brings people together. And the fact that you've currently got, I think, something like 65 million users and can allow anyone to order a coffee confidently when they're on holiday in a different language in just 20 minutes. I urge anyone listening to check it out and arm themselves with the ability to do that. But more than anything, just thank you for bringing everything to life today and sharing the story behind the company.
No, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
For me, I think today was a fascinating journey through the world of AI-enhanced language learning with Steve Toy. And so a big thank you to him for coming on and sharing his story. And I think from the early roots of adult literacy and integrating AI in mobile applications, Steve has shown us today how the future of education can positively be reshaped with technology. And that introduction of MemBot, I think, just exemplifies how AI can augment our learning experiences and ultimately give us the confidence to venture into new languages and new cultures. And that's got to be a great thing. I always say technology works best when it brings people together. And if we can just remove that awkwardness of being afraid to use what we've learned online, whether it be about a language, to ask for a cup of coffee in a cafe, for example. And if technology can give us the confidence to explore those new languages and cultures, again, got to be a great thing. But for anyone listening wanting to learn more about Memrise and MemBot and get more hands-on with this technology we discussed today when browsing their favourite content on TikTok or YouTube, etc., you can find their app on the web and mobile platforms. And I'm sure Steve's team will be ready to help you immerse yourself in new languages, cultures and experiences, making the world smaller, a more accessible place, one word at a time. Well, thank you, Steve, for joining us today. And thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in to today's episode of Tech Talks Daily. I'll be back tomorrow with more inspiring tech stories, insights and innovation. But please, stay curious, keep learning. Remember, technology does really work when it brings people together. And I hope you'll join me again tomorrow. But thanks for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.